And the interesting part is the gap between you and them is not as big as it kind of traditionally would be with most parents, right? It's probably at least 20, 25, 30 years. But in your case, it's 15.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to presuppose how your parents were, but what I have noticed sometimes when you have young parents, there's kind of like a hard line to define of I'm your mom, I'm your dad. And sometimes it's like, I'm kind of like your older sister, your older brother, instead of this more rooted, this is how it should be. I understand, the rules, and I'm going to enforce good boundaries on you. Do you think that you had any challenge with that at all?
I didn't have any challenge, but we definitely did not have that, there was no real power dynamic to, my mom. I was like a latchkey kid. My mom worked a lot. They were always in school or something like that. So it was
So that's where maybe a lot of the independence and the freedom kind of came from. I don't really need a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just cook my own food, go play with my friends, make sure my homework's done so I don't get in trouble, because I liked my freedom.
Is that what
Absolutely. And my dad, I lived with him for a little bit when I was 16, because we were having those issues, and I had skipped school, and I got in trouble, I would say twice in 1 week for truancy in New York City. So it's the NYPD is involved and whatnot, but it's not a real thing. It doesn't go on your record or anything. You just go in a center and it's
do they pick you up? How does that work?
They do. I was trying to go get food. Just trying to get Chinese food.
So young parents, remind me of the ages again.
15, and my mom turned 16 a month later after I was born.
Okay, so they're very much same time. So
15,
sophomore-ish
16,
year,
17.
high school, freshman year, high school. Okay. So we can imagine, we're not gonna try to speak for your parents, but we can imagine there's a significant amount of growing and maturing that needs to happen during that critical time for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Take a kid out of the equation, just you, right? Okay. So then amplify that now with the fact that now you have to try to learn how to raise a young person like yourself.
I couldn't imagine.
Right?
That's why I'm I hold no animosity or anything for anything, because I'm I'm 36 and I don't know how.
It would be hard. It would be hard for anybody realistically. But I say that because one of the things that you said that I thought was interesting was I feel like I somewhat take care of them a little bit more now, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting part is the gap between you and them is not as big as it kind of traditionally would be with most parents, right? It's probably at least 20, 25, 30 years. But in your case, it's 15.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to presuppose how your parents were, but what I have noticed sometimes when you have young parents, there's kind of a hard line to define of I'm your mom, I'm your dad. And sometimes it's I'm kind of like your older sister, your older brother, instead of this more rooted, this is how it should be. I understand, the rules, and I'm going to enforce good boundaries on you. Do you think that you had any challenge with that at all?
I didn't have any challenge, but we definitely did not have that. There was no real power dynamic to my mom. I was a latchkey kid. My mom worked a lot. They were always in school or something like that. So it's
So that's where maybe a lot of the independence and the freedom kind of came from. I don't really need a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just cook my own food, go play with my friends, make sure my homework's done so I don't get in trouble, because I liked my freedom.
So you essentially, if I'm understanding you correctly, you had to mature a lot faster than most people did, because it sounds like you were on your own more often than not.
Yes.
Okay. That's an interesting point, because for a lot of people, it's I don't know if you pay attention to this at all, but now they use these terms like helicopter parents and bulldozer parents.
What does that mean?
If your kid has an issue over something, they'll be the ones swooping in to try to fix everything, save the day, whether it's with a teacher, another student. I don't know if you've heard that term, but it's a very popular thing that people will talk about for parents who just want to try to ensure the best outcome for their kid, but sometimes they're kind of doing a lot and they might need to pull back some. That's one extreme. I'm painting a picture here. That's one extreme, right? That's I don't want you to worry about anything. I'm going to take care of all of it. And the other extreme could be you're not getting a lot of boundaries and structure, and you're getting so much freedom that it's kind of hard to give you guidance and proper advice at times, because you might feel like I don't maybe need it when there's moments that perhaps you really should.
I would say, so when I was 11 or 12 is when my mom kind of disappeared, and so did my dad at the same time. So I was with my uncle for a bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like that after that point, the dynamic changed between us, because like before it was like she was always a constant, and after that when I moved back to New York with her, it was I think she definitely struggled with being like a person that could give me boundaries and structure, because she kind of, I think, had a little bit more guilt than she had
because
prior.
of the time apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wasn't really a crazy kid either, so it's like the most I would do is skip school.
Well, I mean, which is good, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean,
I
would
went to
say,
school by the beach, so it was
Okay, that's
hard
good.
not to go.
if I want to go. No, I would say like it makes sense then that on one hand, maybe they were fortunate that you weren't really adventurous. Maybe like to the point where, maybe you
Yeah.
got involved in some things maybe you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, maybe noticing that it would be harder to enforce these rules when we've kind of had a little bit lapse of time where we've actually been present. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And my dad, I lived with him for a little bit when I was like 16, because we were having those issues, and I had skipped school, and I got in trouble, I would say like twice in 1 week for truancy in New York City. So it's like the NYPD is involved and whatnot, but it's not like a real thing. It doesn't go on your record or anything. You just like go in a center, and it's
Do they pick you up? How does
they
that work?
do. I was trying to go get food. Just trying to get Chinese food. I was hungry. It was lunchtime too.
I will say, and that's obviously a different. So we're based in Florida, right? For the audience that may not know, and you're talking about being up in the Northeast,
Brooklyn.
I will say, okay, Brooklyn. I will say, I feel like if you're a New Yorker, like there is a little bit of a bigger sense of independence that you probably have as a youth, because you're kind of used to either walking by yourself, taking trains or the subways by yourself. Down here, it's expected you're either catching the bus like I did, or you're getting taken to school and to most of the places you need to go. And obviously now we have Uber. So I think inherently there would be more set of independence for you regardless, just growing up there. And then it's kind of like you got a bit extra because parents maybe weren't around as much. So you could really get into some mischievous stuff if you really wanted to.
Oh, I could have. And I mean, the most would be like smoking weed. But I was like one of those kids that, I don't know, I just respected my brain a lot. And I was like kind of...
Like, I don't want to go too far.
Yeah. I'm like,
Okay.
I'll wait till I'm like in my 20s to figure some other stuff out. But like, I'm just trying to navigate, like not going crazy.
Totally fair. So let me ask you. So now, obviously you mentioned up to 11, different, maybe a slightly different relationship, and then it kind of changed because there was that time apart. Would you describe the relationship with mom and dad now?
Me and my mom are best friends. Like, I love her to death. Me and my dad do not talk.
Okay.
Me and my dad's son do talk, and I'm kind of estranged from that side of the family. So.
From dad's side?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that also from following that time after 11, or that was like a little bit later?
Well, like I said, so for truancy, I had gotten sent to Georgia to live with my dad for a little bit.
Dad was in Georgia at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
So so that's where they live. They're in Georgia, so I stayed in Georgia for about 4 months.
Okay.
And that I feel like was a little bit more like anarchy than anything else, where it was just like he didn't know how to set any rules, and I was drinking and I was smoking cigarettes in the house with my stepmom. Like,
so you're saying dad didn't have rules?
He just
more so.
He just didn't know how to
enforce them.
Yeah, and I'm like in high school for a little bit.
Okay.
There, so.
Which is natural, like when we're in high school.
That was like the most rebellious
anyway.
I was.
I was gonna say, to be fair, like we're gonna push boundaries that time anyway.
Yeah.
So that's totally fair. Okay. And the reason why I asked is because I talk a lot about on this platform and in general the relationships that parents have with kids, and then if you really want to break it down, right? So in a relationship that you have with anybody, it's going to require significant effort and time. With kids, it's a little easier because you give birth to them, so there's like an inherent level of forgiveness that they'll kind of give you, right? Whereas other people will probably walk away from you. But the point is, you still got to earn it, right? You have to work at it like any other relationship. You're not entitled to anything. You have to actually create that and then maintain it. So when you were talking about, me and my dad don't have the best relationship right now, but me and my mom are closer. So in my mind, I was trying to figure out where that might have fragmented, where you said, I'm estranged from this entire half of my family now, where maybe you were closer to them when you were younger.
It's not that we were close. My dad's side of the family was always kind of, I think, did not really care for my mom. So, because my grandmother didn't really like my mom, it wasn't a peaceful time to be around.
Okay.
So, I mean,
that makes sense.
we lived there in Long Island for a little bit when I was like a kid, but
Okay.
it's just very chaotic, and people not dealing with their mental disorders,
Okay.
and projecting it as different things.
So for the most part, because of that and sort of maybe the disposition grandma had with your mom, you naturally grew closer with mom and mom's family.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really just my mom.
Oh, just her. So not even your extended
like,
family?
Not her younger brothers, yeah, like we text here and there, but
Sure.
yeah, I'm not really that close with a lot of people. We just have so many different perspectives.
Of course.
And beliefs that like do not correlate, but we all love each other from afar.
Hey, listen. I'll be the first to say families are complicated. So there's no perfect scenario. There's always going to be people. I have a huge family on both sides. Plenty of us butt heads, or we have differing viewpoints. It's just the nature of things.
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand, because when I think about family, right? So both primary and then extended, for those of us that grow up with aunt, grandma, uncle, it's that sense of stability, particularly when you're talking about when you're young, right? We're outlining your earlier years. It's understanding how that shapes your perception. And stability is really important for young people, because it's hard when you're trying to like figure out who you are, and then you want to feel comfortable to like explore and see
If you don't build
other
trust
things.
in relationships,
You need that. You need that. And who is the first people that we're supposed to build trust and security with? It's your parents.
Yeah.
Whoever they are, right? Whether they're bio or not, whether they're guardians or not, it's your parents. And if you feel any type of animosity, hostility, or rejection, you better believe it's going to play on every type of relationship you try to formulate as you get older.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's good for us to understand that part, so we can understand maybe some of the other things you may have dealt with, as you got older. Or all of us do, in all honesty.